I counted for the third time, my fingers still trembling. Yes, 3 were missing. My little red bank books, the one from Bank of America, the one from Wells Fargo, and the one from the credit union, they were all gone. "Michael," I called out towards the living room, my voice sharper than I intended. The sound of the television immediately lowered, followed by the scuffing of slippers on the hardwood floor. "Mom, what is it?" My son, Michael, appeared at the bedroom doorway, still holding half a cucumber. He was wearing the same navy blue t-shirt I'd bought him last year, its collar now sagging a little. I noticed his eyes dart first to my face, then to my hands, then quickly away. "The bank books from my drawer, have you seen them?" I tried to keep my voice steady, but my 70-year-old heart was pounding against my ribs. "Bank books?" He took a bite of the cucumber, his chewing deliberately slow. "Oh, maybe you put them somewhere else?" I stared into his eyes. Even at 40, his right eyelid still twitched slightly when he lied, exactly like it did when he was a little boy. My gaze drifted down to the bulging pocket of his jeans. "What's in your pocket?" "Nothing, just my phone and wallet." He turned his body slightly, but I had already seen the corner of that familiar red cover. "Take them out." My voice suddenly found its strength. From the kitchen, the clatter of a spatula hitting a pan stopped. I could feel my daughter-in-law, Jessica, listening intently. Michael's face changed. He swallowed the cucumber in his mouth, his left hand unconsciously rubbing the seam of his pants. "Mom, I was just borrowing them for a bit. Leo's summer camp tuition is due next month, and I'm a little short on cash. That's my retirement fund." I heard my own voice tremble. "All 3 of them together. That's $30,000. You took it all?" "It's not like I'm not going to pay it back." He suddenly raised his voice. "What does an old woman like you need that much money for? To let it grow mold?" I felt a wave of dizziness and had to grab the headboard to keep from falling. 20 years ago, after my husband passed, I raised Michael all by myself, put him through college, helped him with the down payment on this house. When he got married, I gave them $20,000. When my grandson, Leo, was born, I gave them another $10,000. And now he was stealing my retirement money. "Go get it back. Go right now," I ordered, pointing to the door. "Eleanor, what's going on?" Jessica walked in, wiping her wet hands on the sunflower print apron tied around her waist. She was 5 years younger than Michael, with a tight perm and lips painted a bright, jarring red. "Mom's saying I took her bank books." Michael immediately turned to his wife, his tone as wounded as a child's. Jessica's eyes narrowed. "Mom, why would you say that? You know Michael isn't that kind of person. They're in his pocket right now." I stared hard at my son. I saw them with my own eyes. Jessica turned to her husband and reached for his pocket. Michael flinched but ultimately let her pull out the 3 red bank books. She flipped through them and then suddenly laughed. "Mom, you're mistaken. These are our savings books. Yours don't look like this." I was shaking with rage. "My name is written right there on the cover." "Oh dear. It's normal for your eyes to play tricks on you when you get older." Jessica stuffed the books back into Michael's pocket and pushed him toward the door. "Michael, go put the pot roast in the oven. You know Mom loves your pot roast." I blocked their way. "Give them back to me." Jessica spun around, the smile gone from her face. "Listen, old lady, don't push your luck. Michael is your son. What's the big deal if he takes a little money? That's stealing." "Stealing?" Jessica scoffed. "Whose house are you living in? Who pays the property taxes? Do you think the food you eat every day just falls from the sky?" I looked at Michael, hoping he would say something, but he just stared at the floor, his fingers fiddling with the edges of the bank books. "Michael," my voice softened, "that's Mom's money for my medical bills." "Medical bills?" Jessica interrupted me. "You're healthier than I am. All you do is hoard money. You can't take it with you when you die, you know." I raised my hand to slap her, but a 70-year-old's arm is no match for a 45-year-old's. Jessica grabbed my wrist with one hand and slapped me hard across the face with the other. A fiery pain spread from my cheek to my ear. I stumbled backward, hitting the wardrobe. The photo frame on my dresser rattled a picture of me and Michael at his college graduation. He had his arm around my shoulder, looking so proud. What if I did? "You useless old hag? Just waiting for your money to rot?" Jessica's voice was shrill and piercing. I touched my face. My fingertips came away with a speck of blood, probably from where her ring had scratched me. Strangely, it didn't hurt that much. It just felt like a heavy stone was pressing on my chest. Fine. I nodded, my voice surprisingly calm. Just fine. I walked slowly to the closet and took out my coat. Michael finally looked up. Mom, where are you going? Out for a walk, I said without turning back. Dinner's almost ready. His voice faded. I closed the door behind me and heard Jessica yelling inside. Let her go. She'll come crawling back after she misses a few meals. In the elevator, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. My left cheek was already swollen, with a thin, little cut. I pressed my handkerchief to it gently and remembered 30 years ago when Michael was in elementary school and got bullied by another kid. I remembered marching over to that boy's house to set things straight. I was so fierce back then, ready to take on anyone for my son. There was a law office at the entrance of our subdivision. I passed it every day on my way to the grocery store. The glass door had vinyl lettering: family law, estate, and property disputes. Today, I pushed that door open. The air conditioning inside was blasting, and I shivered. The receptionist, a young woman, was playing a game on her computer and hurriedly minimized the window when she saw me. Hello, how can I help you? I opened my mouth, but suddenly didn't know where to begin. My son stole my money, and my daughter-in-law hit me. It sounded like a ridiculous family drama. I'd like to consult about a property issue, I finally managed to say. Okay, do you have an appointment? I shook my head. The young woman checked a schedule. Mr. Davis has some availability. Please have a seat. She led me into a small conference room and poured me a glass of water. It was the perfect temperature, not too hot, not too cold. I took a sip and realized how thirsty I was. 10 minutes later, a man in his early 40s walked in, dressed in a sharp suit, his hair perfectly combed. Hello, I'm Mark Davis. He extended his hand. It was dry and warm, his grip firm. I specialize in family property disputes. I noticed his eyes flickered to the bruise on my face, but he didn't say a word. My son stole my bank books, I said directly, and the deed to my house. Mr. Davis nodded, taking a notepad out of his briefcase. Please, take your time. Tell me everything. I told him the whole story, including the slap from Jessica. My voice caught when I got to that part, but I didn't cry. At 70, the tears had long since run dry. Do you have proof the bank books are yours? Mr. Davis asked. Yes, I have photocopies of them and bank statements. And the deed to the house? The house is in my name, I said. I made the down payment, and Michael has been paying the mortgage. Mr. Davis took some notes. Based on what you've told me, your son and daughter-in-law could potentially be charged with theft and elder abuse. What outcome are you looking for? I was stunned. I hadn't thought about what I wanted to happen to them. I just wanted my money and my dignity back. I don't know. Mrs. Miller, Mr. Davis put down his pen. You have the right to file for a preliminary injunction to freeze those accounts. As for the house, since it's in your name, you can demand that they move out. Move out? I repeated. But where would they live? That is not your problem to solve. Mr. Davis's voice was calm. They are adults and must be held accountable for their actions. I thought of Leo, my 10-year-old grandson. He loved the pot roast I made and would come to my room every Friday after school to show me his drawings. If I sue them, what would happen? Under the state's Elder Protection Act, abuse can result in jail time or fines. If the theft amount is considered significant, they could face felony charges. Mr. Davis paused. But in family disputes, we generally recommend starting with mediation. I took my reading glasses out of my purse and carefully looked at the documents he gave me. A few thin pages, filled with my rights. After 70 years of living, it was the first time I knew I had so many rights. I want my money back, first, I said. Mr. Davis nodded. We can file to freeze the accounts. We'll need your ID and social security information. They're at the house. Will you have any trouble going back there tonight? I remembered Jessica's sneering face and Michael's evasive eyes. Yes. Then we'll file the case today, and I can accompany you to retrieve your documents tomorrow. Mr. Davis produced a retainer agreement. I'll need you to sign here. I signed my name and pressed my thumb onto the red ink pad. The crimson stain reminded me of the one on my marriage certificate, more than 40 years ago. It was dark when I left the law office. I bought 2 slices of pizza from a street vendor and ate them on a park bench. My phone rang 3 times. It was Michael. I didn't answer. It was past 9 o'clock when I got home. The scent of pot roast filled the air. The television was on, but no one was watching. Michael jumped up from the sofa. "Mom, where have you been? We were worried sick." Jessica was in the kitchen, washing dishes, deliberately clanking them together. Leo peeked his head out of his room. "Grandma." I wanted to hug him, but I held back. "I went for a walk," I told Michael, and walked straight to my bedroom. "Mom?" Michael followed me in, lowering his voice. "What happened today? Jessica was wrong. I apologize on her behalf." I didn't say anything, just started gathering my documents from the closet. "What are you doing?" He panicked. "I need these for tomorrow." "What for?" I turned to face him. "Michael, I'm old, but I'm not a fool. That $30,000 was the money I saved for my heart surgery." His face changed. "What's wrong with your heart?" "The doctor said I have a blockage, that I might need a stent," I said, stretching the truth. The doctor had only suggested observation. Michael's expression was a chaotic mix of guilt, surprise, and calculation, like an overturned paint palette. "Mom, I didn't know. I'll get the money from the bank tomorrow and give it back to you." "There's no need." I took out Mr. Davis's business card. "I've already retained a lawyer." "A lawyer?" His voice shot up. "You're going to sue us?" Jessica burst in. "What's going on?" Michael showed her the card. Jessica's face twisted into an ugly mask. "Well, isn't this something? Suing your own son, you old hag?" "Out," I pointed to the door. "I'm going to sleep." "This is my house," Jessica shrieked. "The deed is in my name," I said, word by word. "Now get out." They backed out, slamming the door behind them. I locked it, put my documents and the photocopies into my bag, and lay down on the bed. The sting on my face was gone, but the hole in my heart was growing larger. My phone screen lit up. It was a text from Leo. "Grandma, don't be mad at Mom and Dad. I love you." The tears finally came. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I was wide awake. I'd slept fitfully. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Jessica's hand swinging towards me and Michael's averted gaze. I felt the bag beside my pillow. The documents and copies were there, their hard edges pressing against my hand, which gave me a strange sense of security. I washed up quietly, trying not to wake them. In the mirror, the bruise on my left cheek had turned a dark purple, like an ugly birthmark. I tried to cover it with foundation, but it only made it look more conspicuous. "Grandma?" Leo stood at the bathroom door, rubbing his eyes. "Are you going out?" I squatted down to be at eye level with my beloved grandson. He was wearing dinosaur pajamas, his hair a messy tuft, and he still had that sweet, milky scent of a child. "Yes, Grandma has to run an errand. Can you get yourself to school today?" "Dad said you're going to sue us." His lower lip trembled. "Is it true?" My heart clenched. What does a 7-year-old know about lawsuits? Jessica must have been spouting nonsense in front of him. "Grandma just has to take care of some business." I stroked his head. "Go get dressed. I'll make you a fried egg." In the kitchen, I moved quickly to make breakfast. The oil sizzled in the non-stick pan as the egg white solidified into a snowy circle. Leo liked his yolks runny, and I always cooked them just right. "Mom?" Michael was standing at the doorway, I don't know for how long. His face was stubbled, his eyes bloodshot. "Can we talk?" I slid the egg onto a plate. "I have an appointment with my lawyer at 8 o'clock. Do you really have to be so ruthless?" His voice was low, but every word hammered at my heart. "I'm your son." "A son doesn't steal his mother's retirement money." I turned to face him. "A son doesn't stand by and watch his wife hit his mother." He was speechless. "Let Leo eat," I said, picking up the plate. "He has school." "I did use $10,000 of it," Michael said suddenly. "I signed Leo up for a summer coding camp. I'll give you the rest back right away." I stopped. "And the house deed?" It's with me." He looked down. "The company needed to secure financing, so I used it as collateral." The world went black for a moment, and I had to grab the counter to keep from falling. This ungrateful son had mortgaged my house. Mom! Michael tried to support me, but I pushed his hand away. Mr. Davis was right. I took a deep breath. You two really should move out. At 7:30, Mr. Davis was waiting for me at the entrance to the subdivision as promised. He wore a dark gray suit today, looking even more serious and professional. When he saw my face, he frowned. Do we need to go to the hospital first? No, I shook my head. Let's go to the courthouse. The courthouse was much busier than I expected. People were milling about in the lobby, a cacophony of voices creating a constant hum. Mr. Davis expertly led me through the crowd to a counter labeled Case Filing. Is Judge Evans available? He asked the clerk. It's an elder protection case, emergency asset preservation. The clerk made a call, and a moment later, a woman in her 50s emerged. She was petite, but her eyes were sharp as a hawk's. Mark, what's so urgent? Mr. Davis briefly explained the situation. Judge Evans looked at the bruise on my face, her brow furrowing deeper. Do you have all the paperwork? Half an hour later, I had signed all the documents. The sound of Judge Evans's keyboard was crisp and decisive. It's been submitted to the system. The banks and the county recorder's office will execute immediately. So quickly? I was surprised. Elder protection cases are on a fast track. Judge Evans handed me her card. Contact me directly if you have any problems. The sun was shining when I walked out of the courthouse. I squinted, feeling the huge stone that had been pressing on my chest finally lighten. They will receive a notice from the court shortly. Mr. Davis said, I suggest you go back and pack any valuables now, just in case things get confrontational. I nodded, my mind on Leo's teddy bear. He had to hug it to sleep every night. I had to remember to bring it. The house was eerily quiet when I got back. Michael and Jessica were gone. Only Leo's toys were scattered across the living room floor. I went into my bedroom and started packing the essentials. My ID, Medicare card, a few changes of clothes, and my husband's photograph. Just as I zipped up my suitcase, the door was thrown open. Jessica burst in, shoving her phone so close to my face I could see the pixels. You old hag, what did you do? All my cards have been frozen. I looked at her calmly. That was my money. You son of a... She raised her hand. I immediately grabbed the phone from my nightstand. Touch me again, and I'm calling the police. I dialed 911, my thumb hovering over the call button. Assaulting a senior citizen, that's at least 15 days in jail. Jessica's hand froze in midair, her face draining of color. Just then, Michael ran in, out of breath, clutching a piece of paper. Mom, someone from the county came by. They said they're putting a lien on the house. Not a lien, I corrected him. An injunction. The house is still mine, but you can't sell it or use it as collateral anymore. You're really kicking us out? Michael's voice trembled. What about Leo? He has his midterm exams next week. A sharp pain shot through my chest, but the memory of last night's humiliation hardened my resolve. You can rent an apartment. That $30,000 should cover your rent for a long time. The money's been used, Jessica screamed. It's tied up in stocks, I can't pull it out. So that was it. They didn't use it for Leo's camp. They gambled it on the stock market. I should have known. Jessica was always dreaming of getting rich quick, spending her days staring at stock charts. That is your problem. I picked up my suitcase. I'm giving you 3 days to move out. Mom? Michael fell to his knees, his face a mess of tears and snot. I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please, just forgive me this one time. Once, a long time ago, he had scraped his knee and cried for me just like this. I almost softened, but the faint ache in my cheek reminded me. It's too late, Michael, I said softly. It was too late the moment you stood by and watched Jessica hit me. I dragged my suitcase out the door, hearing Jessica's hysterical screams behind me. You'll get what's coming to you, you old hag. You'll die a miserable death. The elevator doors closed, shutting out the vicious curses. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to lean against the wall for support. A 70-year-old woman kicking her own son out of her house. To outsiders, I must seem like a heartless mother. But no one knew that my heart had already been shattered into 1,000 pieces. I checked into a motel. Mr. Davis said it was temporary, that I could go back once the house was empty. It was $150 a night, with a discount for a monthly stay. I paid with my pension funds. The young woman at the front desk looked at me with curiosity but didn't ask any questions. The room was small but clean. I sat on the edge of the bed, gazing at the unfamiliar cityscape outside the window, and was suddenly overcome with a sense of bewilderment. What now? Was I really going to take my own son to court? My phone rang. It was Linda from the senior center. "Eleanor, how come you haven't been to line dancing the past few days?" Her booming voice came through the receiver. "We learned a new routine, and we're missing our lead dancer." I mumbled a vague excuse, saying I hadn't been feeling well. After hanging up, I decided to take a walk to the center. It was better than stewing in my room alone. The senior center was the same as always. A group of ladies was line dancing, while a few old men were huddled around a chessboard, arguing loudly. The moment I walked in, the chattering quieted down, and dozens of eyes turned to me. "Eleanor." Linda hurried over and took my hand. "What happened to your face?" I subconsciously touched the bruise. "I took a fall." "Nonsense." Linda lowered her voice. "Did that daughter-in-law of yours get rough with you again?" I looked at her, surprised. "How did you know?" "We've all seen it." Linda pursed her lips. "Every time that woman comes to pick up the boy, she's always ordering you around. Does she think we're blind?" The other seniors gathered around, offering words of concern. Mr. Lee even pulled out a bottle of liniment, a secret family recipe, he said. My nose suddenly tingled. These neighbors, with no blood relation to me, cared more than my own son. "I'm suing them," I said in a small voice. "It's about time." Linda slapped her thigh. "My good-for-nothing son tried to trick me out of my house last year. I took him to court, and now he's as meek as a lamb." "But," I hesitated, "he's my own son. All the more reason he should be respectful." Mr. Lee's mustache bristled with indignation. "Eleanor, you're just too soft-hearted. Do you know what the young people call seniors like us these days? ATM parents? We're mom and dad when we have money, but a burden when we don't." One by one, the seniors at the center shared their own stories of mistreatment. As I listened, my back gradually straightened. I wasn't alone. So many seniors like me, who had worked hard their whole lives, were being treated like cash machines by their own children in their old age. "The court mediation is tomorrow. I'm a little scared," I admitted. "What's there to be scared of?" "We'll go with you," Linda declared heroically. "Let the judge see that we seniors are not to be trifled with." My steps felt much lighter on the way back. As I passed the community park, I heard a familiar cry. I followed the sound and saw Leo sitting alone on a swing, his small shoulders shaking. "Leo." I hurried over. "Why are you here by yourself?" He looked up, his face streaked with dirt, his eyes swollen like peaches. "Grandma." He flung himself into my arms. "Mom and Dad were fighting. They said we're going to be homeless." My heart tightened. I held my grandson close. "Where are they?" "Dad went to the bank, and Mom went to see a lawyer," Leo sobbed. "Grandma, are we really not going to have a home anymore?" I didn't know how to answer. From a distance, Jessica's shrill voice carried over. "Michael Miller, I must have been blind to marry a loser like you." They approached from different directions. Michael's suit was wrinkled, his tie askew. Jessica's hair was a mess, her makeup smudged. They both stopped when they saw me. "Mom!" Michael's voice was hoarse. "Are you satisfied now? The bank said the accounts will be frozen for at least 3 months, and the landlord wants us out by tomorrow." I remained silent. Leo clung to my coat as if I were his only anchor. "Mom, please, drop the lawsuit." Michael suddenly knelt on the gravel path. "We know we were wrong. We really do." Jessica stood to the side, her expression unreadable. I waited for her to apologize too, but she just said coldly, "Leo, come here." Leo hesitated before finally letting go of my coat. Watching my grandson walk toward his mother, looking back every few steps, my heart felt like it was being ripped in two. "Michael," I took a deep breath. "At the mediation tomorrow, if you show genuine remorse, the judge will be lenient." "Mediation?" Jessica shrieked with laughter. "Who wants to mediate? Leo, we're going to file a countersuit." We're suing her for abandoning her family. I stared at her in shock, unable to believe my ears. They were the ones who stole my money and hit me, and now they were suing me? Jessica? Michael stood up and grabbed her arm. Stop it. Get off me. Jessica shook him off. Your mother showed no mercy, so don't blame us for being ruthless. Leo, let's go. As I watched them walk away, my legs felt so weak I had to hold on to the swing set to stay upright. The setting sun cast their shadows long and distorted, like 3 writhing black snakes slithering into the distance. Back at the motel, I immediately called Mr. Davis. He actually laughed after hearing what happened. Mrs. Miller, don't worry. They're just bluffing. An abandonment claim would never hold up. The house is yours. You have the right to decide who lives there. But Leo, my voice trembled. Children under 10 do have special protections. Mr. Davis chose his words carefully. But you haven't refused to care for your grandson. You simply have a dispute with his parents. The judge will take that into consideration. After hanging up, I took a hot shower, but it couldn't wash away the chill in my heart. The city lights began to twinkle outside, a beautiful sight, but all I could see was Leo's tear-streaked face. Would tomorrow finally bring a resolution? The mediation room was smaller than I had imagined. A rectangular table, a few chairs, and a cross-stitch on the wall that read, Peace and Harmony in the Home. I arrived half an hour early. Mr. Davis was reviewing documents with the clerk. Are they here? I asked quietly. Just arrived. They're in the waiting room next door. Mr. Davis handed me a cup of water. Don't be nervous. If mediation fails, we proceed to a hearing. I nodded, but my hands were shaking so badly that water sloshed onto my skirt. I had made a point of wearing my most respectable navy blue suit, even having the motel press it for me. 70 years old, and my first time in a courthouse was to sue my own son. The door opened, and Judge Evans walked in, followed by Michael and Jessica. Michael was wearing a suit, but his eyes were puffy. Jessica was dressed in black, her lips pressed into a thin line. Leo was not with them. Now that both parties are present, let's begin. Judge Evans opened a file. This case concerns a family property dispute and an elder protection claim. I am the mediating judge, Linda Evans. She asked me to state my claims first. I explained as concisely as I could about the bank books and the house deed. When I got to the part about Jessica hitting me, my voice still broke. Mr. Davis promptly submitted the medical report and bank statements as evidence. When it was Michael's turn to speak, he kept his head down, his voice as quiet as a mosquito's buzz. I admit I took Mom's bank books, but I only meant to borrow them. My business was having cash flow problems. Borrow? Judge Evans's sharp gaze shot toward him. Did you have her permission? Michael fell silent. Jessica suddenly stood up. Your Honor, I have something to say too. Please, go ahead. My mother-in-law has always been very controlling. Jessica's voice was high and thin. Michael is over 40 years old, and she still makes him turn over his paycheck. That $30,000 was Michael's money to begin with. It was the living expenses he gave her over the years. I stared at her, stunned that she could twist the truth so blatantly. Mr. Davis gently pressed my hand, signaling me to stay calm. Do you have proof? Judge Evans asked. Our neighbors can all testify, Jessica said defiantly. She's also been going around the neighborhood bad-mouthing us, trying to turn the other seniors against us. Judge Evans turned to me. Mrs. Miller, your response? I was shaking with fury. That's a complete lie. You were the ones who stole my money and hit me, and now you're turning it around on me. Who hit you? Jessica sneered. You got that bruise when you fell. Your Honor, she's making false accusations. That's enough. Judge Evans slammed her hand on the table. Miss Miller, watch your words. The forensic report is perfectly clear. The injuries on Mrs. Miller's face were caused by external force. Jessica shut her mouth, but her eyes were still full of venom. The mediation had reached a stalemate. Judge Evans decided to speak with us separately. In the small conference room, I finally broke down, the tears flowing uncontrollably. Judge, it's not that I want to see them in jail. I just want an apology. I want them to know they were wrong. Judge Evans handed me a tissue. Mrs. Miller, I understand how you feel, but based on the current evidence, your son and daughter-in-law's actions have likely broken the law. Even if you wanted to drop the charges, the district attorney's office could still choose to prosecute. I was taken aback. Is it that serious? The Elder Protection Act states that abuse is punishable by up to 5 days in jail or a warning. Theft of over $2,000 is a felony. Judge Evans sighed. Your son and daughter-in-law don't seem to realize the gravity of the situation. Back in the mediation room, Michael was visibly shaken. Judge Evans must have given him the same warning. He kept glancing at me, his eyes pleading. Jessica's face was ashen, her fingers drumming restlessly on the table. Through mediation, Judge Evans announced, the parties have failed to reach an agreement. This case will now proceed to litigation. The next hearing date will be— Wait. Michael suddenly stood up. Mom, we're willing to return the money. And we'll move out of the house right away. Please, just give us one more chance. Jessica tugged at his sleeve, but he shook her off. For the first time, I saw a look of resolve on my son's face. Jessica, that's enough. We were wrong. And that's that. The room was silent. The color drained from Jessica's face, leaving it a sickly gray. She slowly stood up and bowed to me. Mom, I'm sorry. The word mom was forced, but it was an apology nonetheless. I looked at Judge Evans, who gave me a slight nod. All right, I said. The money must be returned, every last cent. You can stay in the house for now, but the deed must be returned to my safekeeping. Thank you, Mom. Thank you. Michael bowed repeatedly, his face a mess of tears. Judge Evans quickly drafted a settlement agreement. As Jessica signed, her hand was shaking so much she could barely hold the pen. I noticed her signature was crooked and messy, a stark contrast to her usual flamboyant scrawl. Walking out of the courthouse, the sunlight was so bright it made me squint. Michael ran up, trying to support my arm, but I gently sidestepped him. Mom, his voice was filled with pain. Let me take you home. No need. I hailed a cab. Remember, you have 1 month to pay back the money. As I closed the car door, I saw through the window that Jessica was pinching Michael's arm, hard. He stood there motionless, like a wooden post. The taxi pulled away, their figures shrinking in the distance until they disappeared on the courthouse steps. Where to? The driver asked. I paused. Back to the motel? Or back home? Sunshine Gardens. I finally named an address. It was my old condo. The tenants had just moved out last month, and I hadn't found new ones yet. The key was with Linda at the senior center. I needed time to think, space to breathe. Until Michael paid back that $30,000, I couldn't pretend nothing had happened and live under the same roof with them. My phone vibrated. It was a voice message from Leo. Grandma, Dad said you forgave us. I drew a family picture. Can I bring it to you tomorrow? Listening to my grandson's innocent voice, tears welled up in my eyes again. Forgiveness? It wasn't that easy. But for Leo, I was willing to try. 3 days after the settlement was signed, I started feeling dizzy. At first, I thought it was the weather. It had been incredibly muggy, the air thick with the smell of damp earth, like a thunderstorm was brewing. But as I stood in the kitchen making breakfast, the room suddenly began to spin. The bowl in my hand crashed to the floor, shattering into pieces. Eleanor? Mrs.? Chen from the apartment downstairs heard the noise and ran up. When she saw me slumped in a chair, her face changed. Your lips are turning blue. I'm calling 911. I tried to say it wasn't necessary, but my tongue felt like a thick sponge, refusing to form words. Mrs. Chen's daughter was a nurse. She quickly brought up a blood pressure cuff. My systolic was 190. The wail of the ambulance siren seemed to come from far away. As I was being lifted onto the stretcher, I vaguely saw Mrs. Chen on the phone. She must be calling Michael, I thought, and then the world went dark. When I woke up, I was surrounded by a blinding white. The sterile smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils. Fluid dripped, 1 drop at a time, from the IV bag, as if counting down the final seconds of my life. Mrs. Miller, you're awake. A young doctor in a white coat approached, flipping open my chart. I'm Dr. Liu. Do you have a history of high blood pressure? I shook my head slightly, the movement sending a sharp pain through my temples. The tests show you've had a minor stroke. You'll need to stay for a few days of observation. Dr. Liu adjusted the IV drip. Your family is taking care of the admission paperwork. Family? My heart lurched. Sure enough, the door to the room opened and Michael rushed in, followed by a reluctant Jessica. Mom? Michael hurried to my bedside, his eyes red. You scared us to death. I tried to speak, but my throat was parched. Jessica dutifully handed me a cup of water, her movements as stiff as if she were performing a ritual. I took a small sip. The warm water soothed my throat. What did the doctor say? I finally managed to ask. He said it was from high blood pressure, triggered by emotional stress, Michael said, wringing his hands. Mom, don't worry about the money. I've already paid back 10,000 and the remaining 20,000, I corrected him. Jessica's face immediately soured. Mom, this hospital costs over $1,000 a day. Michael took time off work to be here, so his pay is getting docked. Jessica, Michael snapped. That was new. Jessica was clearly stunned, her eyes wide. Mom, Michael turned back to me, his voice softening again. You just rest. I'll figure out the money. I closed my eyes, not wanting to watch their performance. It had only been 3 days since the mediation. Were they already planning to go back on their word? Mrs. Miller? A familiar voice came from the doorway. I opened my eyes to see Mr. Davis standing there, holding a fruit basket. Mr. Davis? Michael's expression froze. What are you? Mrs. Chen called me, Mr. Davis said as he walked in, placing the basket on the nightstand. Mrs. Miller, how are you feeling? Much better, thank you. I tried to sit up, and Mr. Davis quickly helped me adjust the bed. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became tense. Michael stood by, his gaze shifting between me and the lawyer. Jessica stared at the fruit basket as if it contained a bomb. Mom, I'm going to go ask the doctor about your test results, Michael said abruptly, pulling Jessica out of the room with him. Once they were gone, Mr. Davis lowered his voice. Mrs. Miller, your son paid a visit to the county recorder's office yesterday. What? My heart seized. What for? He was attempting to have the injunction on the property removed. Mr. Davis took a document from his briefcase. Fortunately, Judge Evans anticipated this and added a special clause. I took the document, my fingers trembling slightly. Only 3 days, and Michael was already looking for loopholes. It seemed he had no intention of honoring the agreement. Also, Mr. Davis hesitated. I found out that your daughter-in-law opened a new brokerage account. The initial deposit was exactly $20,000. A sharp pain shot through my chest. The heart monitor beside me started beeping loudly. A nurse rushed in, and Mr. Davis was asked to leave. A doctor came and gave me a sedative. Under the influence of the medication, I sank back into a dark abyss. In my dreams, I saw my husband beckoning to me from a distance. He still looked like he was in his 40s, wearing his old blue work uniform. John. I tried to walk towards him, but was blocked by an invisible wall. My husband shook his head and pointed behind him. Leo was standing there, holding up a drawing, crying, "Grandma!" I woke with a start. The room was lit only by a small nightlight. It was raining outside, the drops tapping against the window like a secret code. There was a figure sitting by my bed. I thought it was a nurse, but as my eyes adjusted, I saw it was Jessica. "What are you doing here?" I asked worrilously. Jessica, clearly not expecting me to wake up, hastily shoved something into her pocket. "Mom, I was just checking to see if your 4 was finished." I glanced at the bag. There was still a good amount left. "What time is it?" 3 in the morning. Jessica shifted uncomfortably. "Michael went home to get some clean clothes. He asked me to stay with you." I didn't believe her. In the dim light, I could see the drawer of the nightstand was slightly ajar. My wallet was in there. "You were trying to steal my Medicare card?" I asked point blank. Jessica's face went white. "Mom, how could you think that?" "Take it out," I pointed to her pocket. Jessica hesitated for a few seconds before finally pulling out my Medicare card and my driver's license. "I was just trying to help you with the paperwork." "Get out." My voice was quiet but sharp as a knife. "Get out right now, or I'm pushing the call button and calling the police." Jessica stood up, her expression shifting from shame to resentment. "You'll regret this, you old hag." She slammed the door on her way out. The noise startled the on-duty nurse. "Mrs. Miller, is everything all right?" The nurse peeked in. "I'm fine," I managed a weak smile. "Could you please contact my lawyer, Mr. Davis? Tell him it's urgent." At dawn, Mr. Davis arrived, accompanied by a police officer. I explained what had happened the night before. The officer took my statement and suggested I entrust my valuables to the hospital for safekeeping. "Mrs. Miller," the officer said before leaving, "you might want to consider applying for a restraining order." I looked at Mr. Davis. He nodded. "Under the Domestic Violence Prevention Act, you are well within your rights to do so." I was silent. A restraining order would mean Michael and Jessica couldn't come near me. That would include Leo. Did I really want to go that far? "Find Leo first," I said suddenly. "I'm worried they might do something to him." Mr. Davis and the officer exchanged a look. "We'll contact Child Protective Services," the officer said, "to ensure the child's safety." After they left, the room was quiet again. The rain had stopped. Sunlight streamed through the clouds, casting a bright line across my bedsheets. I watched the dust motes dance in the light and remembered when Leo was just a baby, how I used to hold him on the balcony to sunbathe. Back then, Michael was still a devoted son, and Jessica hadn't yet shown her true colors. What had changed everything? Was it the money, or was it my own coddling that made them feel so entitled? When the nurse came to change my IV, she brought good news. I could be discharged the next day. The bad news was that the high blood pressure and the effects of the minor stroke would require long-term medication and monitoring. "Where is your family?" the nurse asked casually. "I need to go over the discharge instructions." "I don't have any family," I said calmly, surprised at my own words. "If you need anything, please contact my lawyer." From this day forward, I had to learn to be truly independent, to let go of any lingering illusions about my ungrateful son. After my discharge, I moved directly into a senior living community. It was Mr. Davis's suggestion. The environment was quiet, with medical staff on duty, and most importantly, security was tight. No unauthorized visitors allowed. My apartment was on the second floor, south-facing, with a small balcony. Every morning, I would do some simple stretches on the balcony, watching the other residents take their morning walks or practice Tai Chi. Many of them had stories similar to mine. The night before the court hearing, Mr. Davis came to see me, bringing a large manila envelope. "This is our strategy for tomorrow," he said, pulling out a few documents. "And the new evidence we've gathered." I put on my reading glasses and carefully read through the papers. One was a bank statement showing that Michael had withdrawn $15,000 from the brokerage account on the day I was hospitalized. Another was a record from the county showing his attempt to remove the injunction. And this, Mr. Davis handed me a photo. It was of Jessica in a coffee shop, talking to a strange man. The lawyer she hired specializes in inheritance disputes. I gave a bitter laugh. I'm not even dead yet, and they're already fighting over the inheritance. "Mrs. Miller," Mr. Davis hesitated, "tomorrow's hearing might be difficult. Your son's lawyer is very good at playing the sympathy card." "I'm ready," I said, smoothing the wrinkles on my skirt. I had chosen a dark blue suit for the occasion, dignified and serious. That night, I slept surprisingly well. No dreams, no waking up in a panic. It was the calm before the storm. The courthouse seemed even more imposing than the last time. Security check, registration, waiting every step made my heart beat faster. Mr. Davis stayed by my side, quietly explaining the procedures. "They're here," he said suddenly. I looked up and saw Michael's family walk in. Michael was in a crisp suit, Jessica in a black dress. Even Leo was wearing a little suit and tie. Following them was a gray-haired lawyer who was whispering something to Michael. When Leo saw me, his eyes lit up. He started to run towards me but was yanked back by Jessica. My heart ached. The boy was innocent. "All rise," the bailiff's voice boomed. The judge entered, not Judge Evans from the mediation, but a stern-faced, middle-aged man. He surveyed the courtroom, his gaze sweeping between me and Michael. "This court is now in session. The case of Eleanor Miller versus Michael Miller and Jessica Miller for property infringement and elder abuse. The plaintiff's attorney may begin. Mr. Davis was logical and clear, presenting evidence that systematically laid out how the couple had stolen my bank books, illegally mortgaged my property, and refused to repay the funds. The judge nodded occasionally as the court reporter's fingers flew across the keyboard. Then it was the defense's turn. Michael's lawyer, the gray-haired Mr. Chen, stood up, his tone suddenly incredibly gentle. "Your Honor, this is, first and foremost, a family tragedy." He painted a picture of Michael as a devoted son, a hard-working family man. He portrayed me as an elderly, forgetful woman who had misunderstood her son's good intentions. He even presented Leo's school awards, claiming that everything had been done to give the child a better education. "My client admits to using his mother's savings," Mr. Chen said with a pained expression. "But it was a desperate measure. He intended to return the money as soon as his business situation improved, but he never expected this misunderstanding." I was shaking with rage. Lies. All lies. "Does the plaintiff have anything to add?" the judge asked me. I stood up, my hands gripping the rail of the plaintiff's stand to steady myself. "Your Honor, I have something to say." After being granted permission, I slowly told my story. How I was widowed young, raised my son alone, put him through school, helped him get married and buy a house. How I had scrimped and saved to accumulate that $30,000 for my old age. How I discovered the theft and was then assaulted by my daughter-in-law. "The bruises on my face can heal," I said, pointing to the faded mark. "But the wound in my heart, Your Honor, I am 70 years old. I should be enjoying my golden years with my family, not standing here suing my own son." The courtroom was silent. Even the court reporter had stopped typing. I saw a woman on the jury wiping away a tear. Furthermore, I took a deep breath. While I was in the hospital, my daughter-in-law attempted to steal my Medicare card and my ID. The hospital security footage can prove it. That statement was like a bombshell. Michael shot to his feet. "Mom, how could you?" Silence. The judge banged his gavel. Jessica's face was ashen. Leo, confused by the adults fighting, burst into tears. The sound of his crying was like a knife twisting in my heart. "We will take a 15-minute recess," the judge announced. In the waiting room, I collapsed into a chair, completely drained. Mr. Davis handed me a glass of warm water. "Mrs. Miller, you did very well." "The child," I choked out. "Leo shouldn't have to see this." "He certainly shouldn't," Mr. Davis sighed. "But that is not your fault." When the hearing resumed, the judge moved directly to the verdict. Michael and Jessica were ordered to return the full $30,000 within 1 week. The property rights to the house were fully restored to me, and they were forbidden from approaching my residence or hospital without my permission. Furthermore, the judge looked sternly at Jessica. "Pursuant to the Elder Protection Act and the Domestic Violence Prevention Act, this court issues a personal protection order against Jessica Miller, effective for 6 months. Jessica shrieked. "On what grounds? That old—" "Contempt of court," the judge's voice boomed. "A $1,000 fine." Michael grabbed his wife, meekly apologizing to the judge. I watched their groveling, a wave of sadness washing over me. This was the son I had raised with so much love and sacrifice. A man who would steal, lie, and beg for money, and turn on his own mother in a heartbeat. As we left the courthouse, we were swarmed by reporters. The case had apparently garnered media attention, with several newspapers running stories on seniors' rights. The flashing cameras blinded me. Mr. Davis shielded me as we pushed through the crowd. "Mrs. Miller, are you satisfied with the verdict? Will you forgive your son?" The questions came from all sides. I didn't answer. I just held my head high and walked towards the waiting taxi. Before getting in, I looked back at the courthouse steps. Michael's family was surrounded by another group of reporters. Jessica was yelling something at the cameras, her face contorted. Leo was hiding behind his father, his eyes vacant. In that moment, I wanted so desperately to run over and hug my grandson, to tell him that Grandma loved him. But I just turned, got into the car, and closed the door, sealing off 2 different worlds. 3 days after the verdict, I received a package. There was no return address, but the familiar childish handwriting made my heart leap. It was from Leo. I trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a neatly folded piece of paper and a photograph. In the photo, Leo was standing on the school award stage, holding up a certificate, beaming. The paper was an essay he had written, titled, "My Grandma. My grandma is the best grandma in the world. Her pot roast is the most delicious, and her stories are the best. Grandma is always smiling, even when Mom and Dad are fighting." In the essay, Leo recounted all the times I had drawn with him, told him stories, and stayed up all night with him when he had a fever. The last paragraph read, "Now Grandma doesn't live with us anymore, and I miss her a lot. Dad said it's because we did something wrong. I hope Grandma can forgive us, because I love her very much, and I know she loves me too." My teacher said this essay won first place. I want to give the certificate to Grandma. My tears stained the paper. That innocent child. He had done nothing wrong, yet he had to bear the consequences of the adult's mistakes. Tucked inside was, indeed, a folded certificate with the school's official seal. I clutched the paper, as if I could feel my grandson's small hand. The phone rang. It was Mr. Davis. "Mrs. Miller, your son just contacted me. He wants to talk to you." "There's nothing to talk about." I wiped my tears. "Not unless he has the money. He said he's managed to get 20,000. Mr. Davis paused. "And Leo is sick. He keeps asking for you." My heart clenched. "What's wrong with him? Is it serious?" "I'm not sure, but he said if you're willing, he'd like to meet at the McDonald's next to Leo's school." I understood Michael's strategy, a public place to make me feel safe and using Leo as bait. But even knowing it was a trap, I would walk right into it. Because that was my grandson, the boy I had raised. "Tell him 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon," I finally said, "and only he and Leo are to come." The next day, I arrived at McDonald's half an hour early and chose a booth by the window. At exactly 4 o'clock, I saw Michael walking over, holding Leo's hand. The boy had lost weight, his face pale. When he saw me, his eyes lit up, and he let go of his father's hand and ran inside. "Grandma!" He threw himself into my arms. He smelled faintly of medicine. I hugged him tightly, greedily breathing in that unique scent of a child. Michael stood nearby, holding a manila envelope. "Mom?" he called softly, his eyes red. I ignored him, my attention focused on Leo. "Where do you feel sick? Have you been taking your medicine?" "Just a cold. I'm much better now." Leo snuggled against me. "Grandma, did you miss me?" "Yes, every single day." I kissed his forehead, then looked at Michael. "You brought the money." Michael handed me the envelope. 20,000, you can count it." I opened it. It was cash, bundled by the bank. "And the other 10,000? "I'll have it next month, I promise." Michael's voice was hoarse. "Mom, I really am sorry." I didn't respond, just waved a waitress over and ordered a Happy Meal for my grandson. Leo happily munched on his fries, chattering about school, as if we were just a normal family having a meal together. "Mom," Michael said suddenly, "Jessica and I are getting a divorce." I looked up, shocked. "What?" "We had a huge fight after we got back from court," Michael said with a bitter smile. "She called me useless, said she'd wasted her life with me. I just couldn't take it anymore. I studied my son." He looked haggard. There was gray at his temples, and the wrinkles around his eyes were deeper. The vibrant young man I remembered was now a broken, middle-aged man. "And the house?" I asked. "I rented a small apartment. It's big enough for me and Leo." Michael stirred his coffee. "The company found out about the lawsuit and demoted me. But it's okay. I'll start over." "Dad cries at night," Leo piped up. "I hear him." Michael quickly tried to cover his son's mouth, but it was too late. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand, the pain making it hard to breathe. "Grandma, can you come home with us?" Leo looked up, his face full of innocence. "I'll be good. I won't let Dad bully you." My eyes stung, and I almost burst into tears right there. What did a child know of the betrayals between adults? He just wanted his family back together. "Leo," I stroked his hair, "the place where Grandma lives now is very far from your school. It's not convenient, but you can come visit me on the weekends, okay?" "Really?" Leo's eyes lit up. Can I have your pot roast? Of course. I'll make you whatever you want. Michael's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his face fell. It's Jessica. Answer it, I said. On the other end, Jessica's voice was so loud I could hear it. Michael Miller, did you give that old hag the money? That's my money. Jessica, calm down. Michael glanced at me awkwardly and stepped outside. Leo's face fell. Mom is always yelling like that. Does she do it often? I asked gently. Leo nodded. She always did, but it's been worse lately. She throws things, and she hits Dad. My heart sank. As much as I disliked Jessica, hearing that my grandson was living in that kind of environment pained me. Michael came back, looking even more defeated. She went to the school. She's demanding full custody of Leo. On what grounds? I snapped. She says I'm an unfit parent. Michael buried his face in his hands. Mom, what do I do? Seeing my son so broken, I suddenly realized that no matter how much he had wronged me, he was still my flesh and blood. And right now, both he and Leo needed help. Mr. Davis knows a very good family law attorney, I said. You can't lose this custody battle. But the legal fees, I'll cover them for now, I said decisively. On one condition. You have to truly change your ways. Michael looked up, tears streaming down his face. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He was crying like a child, just like when he had scraped his knee all those years ago. I reached out my hand, hesitated for a moment, and then placed it on his trembling shoulder. It's never too late to make things right, I said softly. But trust has to be earned back. I understand. Michael wiped his tears. I'll show you with my actions. Before I left, Leo hugged me tightly and wouldn't let go. Grandma, when will you come see me again? Soon, I kissed his small face. I promise. Watching the two of them walk away, I suddenly felt that maybe a family is like a sweater. Even if it unravels, with patience, you can always knit it back together, one stitch at a time. The custody battle with Jessica was more difficult than I had anticipated. She hired a sharp female lawyer who specialized in divorce cases and claimed that Michael had a violent temper, citing the court's elder abuse finding as evidence. Worse, she told the judge that I was too old and frail to help my son care for a child. It was a complete distortion of the truth. She's the one who hit me in the first place. I fumed, slapping the table in Mr. Davis's office. That's how family law works, said Mr. Lee, a colleague of Mr. Sane. Davis, who specialized in custody cases. The other side will use anything they can to attack. So what do we do? I asked anxiously. Leo can't go with her. That woman is emotionally unstable. She'll ruin him. The good news is, the child is over 8 years old, so the judge will take his wishes into consideration. Mr. Lee said, reviewing the file. And we have proof that Jessica has no stable income and has been hiding marital assets. It turned out that Michael had discovered Jessica had secretly transferred the money from her brokerage account to her mother's name during our Deschanel brokerage account. Lawsuit. How much? I asked. Nearly $40,000, Mr. Lee said. It's enough to prove malicious intent to hide assets. I shook my head, unable to comprehend such greed. For money, she would hit her mother-in-law, file for divorce, and even use her own son as a bargaining chip. There is one more thing. Mr. Lee hesitated. If you could provide a written statement declaring your willingness to assist Michael in raising Leo, the judge would take that into account. Of course, I'm willing, I said without a second thought. Do you need me to testify in court? Not at the moment, Mr. Lee smiled. Your support is already a great help. Aware. After leaving the law office, I went straight to the small apartment Michael was renting. It was a one-bedroom, and though modest, it was tidy. Leo was at the small desk doing his homework. He jumped up with joy when he saw me. Grandma, you really came. Grandma keeps her promises. I set down the grocery bags I was carrying. How about pot roast for dinner tonight? Yes, Leo cheered. Michael came out of the kitchen, wearing an apron and holding a spatula. Mom, what are you doing here? Just wanted to see how you two are getting along. I looked around. It was cleaner than I expected. I'm learning to do housework. Michael smiled sheepishly. It's only now that I realize how hard you worked all those years." My eyes welled up, and I quickly turned to unpack the groceries. It was the first time in years that Michael had acknowledged my sacrifices. During dinner, Leo devoured the pot roast while Michael explained the custody situation in detail. "Jessica's demand is high," he said with a bitter smile. "She said if I give her $50,000, she'll drop the custody claim." "50,000?" I almost dropped my chopsticks. "She knows your financial situation. She said if I don't pay, she'll make a scene at Leo's school." Michael buried his face in his hands. "Mom, what do I do?" Looking at my son's despair and then at the innocent face of my grandson, I made a sudden decision. "Give it to her." "What?" Michael looked up. "But I don't have that kind of money." "I do," I said calmly. "But there are conditions." Michael's eyes widened. "Mom, you—" "First," I held up a finger. "This money is a loan, not a gift. You will pay me back. Second, we do this through our lawyers, with a signed agreement ensuring she never harasses Leo again after she gets the money." Tears streamed down Michael's face. "Mom, I don't know what to say." Third, I looked at Leo, my voice softening. "Every Saturday, you and your father must come to my house for dinner. I want to watch my grandson grow up." Leo cheered and threw his arms around my neck. Michael was sobbing uncontrollably. In that moment, I saw the little boy from 30 years ago who had scraped his knee and cried in my arms. Time passes, wounds heal, but the bond of family is always there, waiting for us to find our way back. 3 days later, with the lawyers present, Jessica signed the agreement and took the $50,000 cashier's check. She didn't even ask to see Leo one last time. She just signed her name and left. Watching the click-clack of her high heels as she walked away, I felt a strange sense of pity. For the sake of money, she had lost something so precious. That weekend, I officially moved back into my own house. Michael and Leo helped me with my things, and the three of us cleaned the house together, like a real family. In the evening, we sat on the balcony watching the sunset. Leo chattered excitedly about school, while Michael chimed in with a few comments. "Mom," Michael said suddenly, "I'm thinking of quitting my job." "Why?" I asked, surprised. Things were just starting to stabilize. "I want to start my own business." Michael's eyes lit up. "Go back to what I know. Interior design. I've built up a good network of clients over the years." I looked at him as he talked animatedly, and I saw a glimpse of the young man he used to be, full of dreams and ambition, not the man who had been blinded by money. "Do you need startup capital?" I asked. "No." Michael shook his head. "I want to do this on my own. I've already talked to a few friends who are willing to partner with me, and we found an affordable office space." I nodded, pleased. This was my son, capable of picking himself up after a fall. "Grandma, can I have my own room here?" Leo asked suddenly. "Of course," I stroked his head. "You're always welcome." "Great," Leo cheered. "I'm going to bring all my dinosaur models over." Watching my grandson's excitement, I realized that this whole ordeal had brought me not just pain, but unexpected gifts: the chance to repair my relationship with my son and the time to be with my grandson. That night, Michael offered to give me a shoulder massage. His touch was just right, and I felt myself drifting off. "Mom," he said softly, "thank you for giving me a chance to make things right." I didn't say anything, just patted his hand. Some forgiveness doesn't need words, and some trust takes time to rebuild. But at least we had found our way back to each other. Before bed, I opened my photo album and looked at my husband's picture. "John," I whispered, "I got our son back." In the photo, he was smiling, as if he had been waiting for this day all along. Leo's 10th birthday party was held at my house. The living room was decorated with streamers and balloons, and a 2-tiered dinosaur cake, which I had learned to make at a local baking class, sat on the dining table. Michael had invited Leo's classmates and their parents, as well as a few of his new business partners. "Eleanor, your house is beautiful," one of the mothers exclaimed. "This design is so unique." "My son designed it," I said proudly, pointing to Michael, who was busy entertaining the guests. "He started his own interior design firm. It's doing very well." Michael overheard and gave me a wink. His company had been open for 6 months and had already landed over a dozen projects. He was even featured in a home design magazine recently. More importantly, he brought Leo to visit me every Saturday without fail, sometimes staying over until Sunday evening. "Grandma, come see my presents." Leo tugged at my hand excitedly. The children were gathered around, tearing open presents, their laughter filling the room. I sat to the side, watching my grandson's rosy cheeks, my heart full. After the party, Michael stayed to help me clean up. Leo, exhausted, had fallen asleep on the sofa, still clutching a new dinosaur model. "Mom, your 71st birthday is next month," Michael said as he wiped the table. "I was thinking of taking you on a trip to Hawaii." "Why spend all that money?" I shook my head. "A nice dinner at home is fine." "No, we have to go," Michael insisted. "The company just landed a big contract, and the bonus was good. Besides," he paused, "I want to make it up to you." I looked at his sincere eyes and finally nodded. "All right, but don't go overboard." After we finished in the kitchen, Michael took an envelope out of his briefcase. "Mom, this is the last payment." Inside was $10,000 in cash, the final portion of the debt he owed me. I took the envelope, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. A year ago, this money had driven us to court. Today, it was a symbol of our rebuilt trust. "There was no rush," I said, placing the envelope on the table. "It had to be paid," Michael said seriously. "That's your retirement money." I accepted the money, went upstairs, and took a document from my safe. Back in the living room, I handed it to Michael. "Take a look at this." "What is it?" Michael opened the folder, his eyes widening. "An educational trust fund. I used that $30,000 to set it up," I explained. "It's specifically for Leo's future education. You're the trustee, but any withdrawal requires my signature." Michael's eyes grew red. "Mom, you—" "It's not that I don't trust you." I patted his hand. "It's just a precaution." "I understand." Michael took a deep breath. "This is good. It really is." We looked at each other and smiled. The wounds were still there, but they had scarred over. Trust wasn't fully restored, but the seeds had been planted. Before bed, I opened my journal to write about the day. Ever since the lawsuit, I had started keeping a diary, recording my thoughts and feelings. Flipping through the old entries, I was amazed at how much I had changed, from the initial anger and despair, to the hesitation and struggle, and finally to the peace and acceptance I felt now. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mr. Davis. "Mrs. Miller, are you still planning to volunteer at the legal aid event next week?" I replied immediately. "Of course." After winning my case, I had contacted the Community Legal Aid Center and become a volunteer, specializing in helping seniors whose rights had been violated. My story became a case study, and I was even featured on a local television program about legal rights. "Eleanor is the star of our center," a young paralegal named Sarah often said. "So many seniors saw your story and found the courage to fight for themselves." It was true. Every week, seniors came to me for advice. Some had been tricked out of their house deeds by their children. Some had their savings stolen by caregivers, and some, like me, had been abused by their own families. I listened patiently, offered advice, and referred them to reliable lawyers when necessary. "You're so patient," Sarah once asked me. "Don't you get tired of hearing so many negative stories?" "It's because I've been through it that I understand their pain," I had replied. "And being able to help others makes me happy." After finishing my entry, I turned off the lamp. Moonlight filtered through the curtains, casting a silver line on the floor. I thought back to that rainy night a year ago, lying alone in a hospital bed, thinking my life had hit rock bottom. Who would have thought that things would turn around so completely? I was now more fulfilled and happier than I had been in the last 10 years. Yes, I had lost a lot: my blind faith in my son, my unrealistic ideals about family, and some interest on that $30,000. But I had gained so much more. My son's remorse and growth, my grandson's love and companionship, and the chance to rediscover myself. Tomorrow was Saturday. Michael and Leo would be staying for the weekend. I had already planned the menu: oatmeal and scallion pancakes for breakfast, braised ribs for lunch, and dumplings for dinner. Leo wanted to teach me a new board game, and Michael had promised to help me with the garden. Life is like that. Just when you think you've hit a dead end, you might find a new path around the corner. The important thing is to never give up hope, never lose your dignity, and never forget how to love. I quietly closed my bedroom door. I could hear Michael's steady breathing from the next room and Leo's occasional murmurs from his sleep on the sofa. This house finally felt like a home again. Good night, world. Tomorrow is a new day.